Good day to all of you.
Good day.
Good
Good
day.
day.
It is our initiative to discuss the developmental issues one by one. And that was the idea that we can exchange developmental topics and somebody can present on a developmental issue and all of us can join. Let me give an introduction that Indian Economic Service was set up in 1961 and direct recruitment to the Indian Economic Service started in 1968. This is 1980 batch of Indian Economic Service officials who have already put in about 4 decades of developmental service working in various departments of the government of India, state government, tendering economic advice, and they are involved in formulation of economic policies and implementation of economic policies, programs, and projects, including social policies and social projects. So that is why we thought that with this tremendous uh, developmental exposure and developmental experience, let us share our experience not only for ourselves, but also for the public, youngsters, so that we can speak in common words, in ordinary words, to make the issues intelligible to people. So today's topic is very, very interesting. This is basically based on the current discussion going on in International Economic Association, which concluded in July this month, last month. That is growth versus human welfare and human happiness. So, uh, so I think we can remain muted. Uh, we can remain muted, and it is based on Rajiv's paper, which is titled "The Emerging Human Society," and also Kaushik Basu's paper, where he highlighted what happened in the July 2021 meeting of the International Economic Association, and he has written a beautiful paper on titled "The Changing Map of Economics," where he said that because of COVID and because of the emerging issues, because of all those problems that COVID has brought in, like work from home, like digital divide, like inequality of income, like increase in poverty numbers, the vaccine inequity, all this has brought us to a new dimension. And also, both Rajiv and Kaushik Basu have highlighted one point, that is non-economic issues. The creative pursuits are also very important. On the one dimension, poor people are really suffering, they are losing their jobs, uh, people are facing salary cuts, and also migration of labor, nothing to eat, all those problems. In addition to that, people are working, in the word of Rajiv, from morning to evening, but their mental satisfaction is not there. That creative pursuit, like hobby, like listening to music or any other reading, all these things are absent, and these are very, very important things, and these are actually reflected in GDP. So to cover those issues, Rajiv has chosen this topic. So I think this issue of human welfare, human happiness with sustainability, the quest for human happiness, human welfare with sustainability. We have to be sustainable. So I request Rajiv to please take over and present the paper. Thank you.
Pursuit of growth versus human welfare and happiness with sustainability. Significant transformation is taking place in human society. The COVID crisis has been a catalyst in bringing about this transformation. The COVID crisis introduced the culture of work from home. The culture of work from home was aided by the IT revolution, which is sweeping the world economy. It is now being realized that it is no longer required to go to office to contribute to economic growth. Many functions that need to be carried out in office are now being performed on the internet by people working from home. It is also realized that children need not necessarily go to school to study. They can study from the comfort of the home through online classes. Sometimes and conference seminars and conferences can be organized on the internet and people can participate in them online. Thus has developed the concept of webinars where people participate in seminars and meetings on the internet in the comfort of their homes. The culture of work from home has reduced the demand for office space. A consequence of this can be decline in property prices. We are in the midst of an energy crisis. Oil and natural gas is becoming scarce. Fossil fuels have to be replaced with renewable energy. Solar, wind, and other forms of renewable energy are transforming the industrial society. We are seeing a revolution in transformation of the automobile sector with the introduction of electric vehicles. Electric cars and two wheelers are gradually replacing the combustion engine. In today's world of the environment crisis, vehicles are becoming a godsend blessing. The environment crisis has led to the phenomena of climate change. Climate change has led to changes in weather patterns all over the world. The society of natural calamities has increased. These there has been severe flooding, forest fires, and other disasters in various parts of the world. Population growth is no longer a cause of worry as it used to be. In several parts of the world, there is today a possibility of reduction in the size of the population. However, unemployment continues to be a major problem haunting the economies of the world. The corona crisis has led to a decline in growth rates in several parts of the world. The declining economic growth rate is leading to aggravation of the unemployment problem the world over. On the technological front, the world is seeing new innovations in space exploration. Several countries have landed the spaceships on the surface of planet Mars. The day is not far away when human beings will land on another surface of another planet. While the pace of space exploration is gaining momentum, the possibility of mining the seabed is also being contemplated. Maximization of production and GDP should no longer be the key objective of human existence. The goal should be maximization of human welfare and happiness. A world where man toiled at his workplace from dawn to dusk and returned home only to prepare his dinner, eat it, and go to sleep will be perceived as grossly inhuman. Man has something to do than merely work and produce. There are a whole lot of creative pursuits which need to be exploited according to one's aptitude and interests. These activities could range from photography, sports, fishing, boating, horse riding, enjoying music, watching plays, painting, stitching, reading books, writing short stories, and so on. Man is no longer a mere economic animal. He has better things to do than merely maximizing GDP and economic growth. A new information and cultural age is dawning upon humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, for such an excellent presentation, especially the dilemma, in the pursuit of economic growth, we should not lose the important dimensions, social dimensions, the distributional issues, and also the creative aspect. Even Kaushik Basu has also highlighted the creative aspects. So that is very important. I think, for the sake of record, uh, we must say that Rajiv has been one of the most intellectually oriented Indian Economic Service officer. He's an author of about 25 books, several developmental articles, economic articles. He keeps reflecting on whole lot of Indian economic issues, South Asian issues, and global issues. So we are so lucky to have his thoughts on this important issue of human welfare and human happiness with sustainability. Bhutan government talks about human happiness index, but really it is much more complicated, and how to really pursue that is a developmental challenge. Now we would come to Mr. Velubu Murugan. Mr. Velu Murugan has been an illustrious Indian Economic Service officer. He has been with the Tamil Nadu government for very long. He has been instrumental in bringing investment from world over to Tamil Nadu and uh, encouraging investment proposals. Uh, uh, we understand that he is the kind of kingpin of any serious economic thinking in Tamil Nadu government, in the sense that if anything reflective to return or anything comprehensive on economic or development issues to be reflected upon by the Tamil Nadu government, Velu Murugan is the only name, and we are so lucky to have him. Like Rajiv, Velu Murugan also has over 40 years of developmental experience at various places, and he has traveled world over. And with these words, I hand over the mic to Velu Murugan.
Thank you, Nirmal. Thank you. First of all, big thanks to you for taking the initiative to organize this forum. This is definitely a wonderful forum for exchange of views. I think we can pick up new ideas, new views, and get an understanding of new dimensions. This is a very laudable initiative. Thank you, Nirmal, for taking this initiative. You have been a great supporter of such innovative thinking. Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank Rajiv. Your ideas are very valid. I fully endorse your views. You have given a new dimension to the to what we call as economic development or wealth. We have been for a long time. We have been talking about increasing our per capita income, increasing our GDP. We are talking, or at the most, maximizing our welfare. We never in economics we never thought about introducing a dimension of happiness. Happiness is something different from increasing per capita income or increasing GDP. These are two different things. We have been always in pursuit of some material things, hoping that this will translate into happiness automatically. The COVID has brought a new dimension completely. COVID has brought a new dimension. It has taught a lot of new lessons to us. It has taught some new lessons. I mean, it's not that income or money is happiness. First of all, even survival, remain healthy, these are all very important factors, and COVID has given a completely a new dimension. And this is a new learning for us. Now we have to talk about, instead of talking about maximizing welfare, we have to talk about maximizing happiness. I read an interesting report on this. I fully endorse the views of Rajiv. Happiness is something more important than anything else. I read an interesting report recently published by United Nations. This is called World Happiness Report. There is an interesting report. It is available. You can download and read that report. The latest report 2021 is also has been recently published. Very recently it was published. This is done by an organization of United Nations called United Nations Sustainable Solutions Network. They bring out this publication. They have been bringing out every year. I have seen the report right from 2011, and it ranks various countries in terms of happiness. They use a variety of both subjective and objective parameters to evaluate nations, to the happiness of people, and come out who is more happy, who is less happy. I think this is very relevant because the parameters used are all very relevant parameters which judge, which make a person very happy or very sad. The parameters are very critical parameters which judge, which determine our happiness. The latest report 2021 is something very startling. But right from 2019 2021, I just out of curiosity, I went through those reports because since Rajiv speaks more about his paper, talks about happiness as more important than other factors, I thought that why don't I read it? I read these reports, 3 reports, very startling revelations. The report analyzes 149 countries worldwide, and India is pathetically ranked 139. There are hardly 10 countries below India. We talk about our development, we talk about economic growth, we talk about so many factors, but there are many countries which are not reached our level of economic growth, but they are still happy. So that means you still don't, we don't, they don't have money, but still they remain happy. So this gives a completely different perspective, For instance, Bhutan, whose economy is nowhere before India. Their per capita income, their GDP, everything is nowhere, no comparison to India. Not even to some of the states in India, not many states in India. They are poorer than us, but they are one of the more happiest nations in the world. And I looked at them, they're consistently happy for the last 10 years. So Bhutan is always ranked as one of the top happiest countries in the world. Of course, the number one spot is always taken consistently by Finland. Finland has remained as the happiest country in the world for last 4 years. Then there are many other countries which are happy, and surprisingly, not many of them are developed countries. Many of them are underdeveloped or developing countries with much lesser per capita income than India. Interestingly, if you look at it, our happiness has been going down year after year. This is another factor about which we have to all worry about. In 2011, India was ranked as 111th country in terms of happiness, 111. Then we gradually slided down, went down, and today we are ranked 139. And if you look at the COVID period in 2019, 2020, and 2021, these 3 years, is actually we have been hovering around 140, 141, 139, and 2020 has been the worst. We climbed up we went down to 144. So we have been considered to be one of the unhappiest nations in the world. Indians are very unhappy, they are not happy, and many other nations are found to be happier than India. Interestingly, if you compare with our neighborhood countries, particularly, we can't compare with the United States or Finland. Obviously, we have to compare with at least our South Asian countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal. We have to compare with these countries. If we compare with these countries, again, we are not doing well. For instance, Nepal is 87th happiest country in the world. They are far ahead of us, at least some 50 places above us. And Bangladesh, 101. They are again above us. They seem to be more happy than us. And Pakistan, surprisingly, very, very happy country, 105. I am surprised. Pakistan is a very happy country. And Sri Lanka is 129. So everybody around us also seem to be very happy than Indians. That's another interesting factor. Everybody is happy, only we Indians are unhappy. That's another thing which is interesting. And the last thing is, I just for out of curiosity, I looked at which are the countries which are unhappier than Indians. It is Afghanistan. Surprisingly, Afghanistan, then Rwanda, and where even human survival, because of internal conflicts, civil wars, even human survival is also a big problem. Those people are unhappy. So In terms of developed countries or developing countries, we are not anywhere near any of the countries, including countries like neighborhood countries which are much poorer than India. Though we claim to be the third largest economy in the world in terms of purchasing power parity, fifth largest in the world in terms of nominal exchange rate, and we claim to be one of the fastest growing countries in the world. In spite of all these facts, one interesting factor or one worrying fact, disturbing factor is that our happiness has been going down year after year. The simple lesson, the simple message is that the report that conveys is that Indians are becoming more and more unhappy year after year, and we are not improving our position. This is something worrying. There's no point in saying we are much developed, our income levels have gone up, India is becoming an economic power. We say so many things. But the fundamental question is whether Indians are happy. This report says no, Indians are not happy. In fact, the happiness is going down year after year. We are one of the most unhappiest nation in the world. This is something worrying. I think every one of us have to ponder on this, the fundamental reasons for this. It talks about the quality of life. In fact, in terms of quality of life also, we don't seem to compare very well with other nations. With many nations, we fare much below them. We don't, it's very unsatisfactory ranking. So my opinion is that as Raju said, instead of talking about the economy in terms of GDP and income levels and various things, ultimately we have to look at whether the citizens of India are happy or not. That's something which we have to look at, and this is an important approach. I mean, fundamentally, we have to reorient approach to look at the welfare of the nation. Instead of looking at the welfare of the nation or the economic development of the nation, we have to look at the happiness of its citizens. So, how to improve the happiness of Indians? This is something which you have to look at. A country like Bhutan, which is one of the consistently happiest countries, very surprising. Their income levels are so low; they are not comparable to Indian levels in any parameter. Take any parameter, except environment. Environmentally, they are much cleaner than India. They have a surplus. Their carbon emissions much lesser than the amount of oxygen they produce. So they have a surplus there. In fact, as against many of us, many nations, including India, polluting very badly. So apart from clean environment, they seem to enjoy happiness because of their culture also. That plays a major role. For instance, Bhutan seems to Bhutanese are primarily Buddhists, and Buddhists talk about inner peace. See, if you talk about inner peace, there's another dimension. When you talk about inner peace, the culture, the religion teaches to build inner peace. When you build inner peace, you feel happiness inside. So this is something which is making Bhutan consistently one of the happiest countries. So I think this is the finding of this report is very disturbing. This report is unfortunately not noticed by many, and its conclusions are not noticed. This is something a very serious issue which we have to ponder, and the government has to look in how to improve the happiness of the citizens. This is all I wanted to say. Overall, I find, Rajiv, you did a splendid job. Your views are very relevant, particularly in the COVID situation. You have captured the realistic situation, what is really happening, and I fully endorse your views. You have done a very good job, Rajiv. Thank you for your presentation, and thanks, Nirmal, for this. I think whatever I wanted to say, I finished saying that.
Thank you very much, Velu. You have covered a lot of areas from Bhutan to Norway, from Bangladesh, and the importance of happiness and importance of human welfare, and the importance to take into consideration happiness index in Velu, can you mute yourself? Velu, can you mute yourself?
Sorry.
So, Velu has given a very comprehensive account. Now, I would request Dr. Sharat Kumar, who once again has more than 4 decades of developmental experience, and always he has been a very strong economist with too much awareness of the social issues, the cultural issues, and the human issues, and he has lot of publications. So Dr. Sharad Kumar has been rather our guiding force in many of the intellectual activities. I would now request Dr. Sharad Kumar to speak on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirmal. It was a pleasure listening to Rajiv and also to Velu Murugan. And if I have to comment as far as this topic of economic development with sustainability is concerned, well, I am reminded of my days in the Planning Commission. And when we were in the Financial Resources Division, we were faced with a big dilemma that if we have to make the resource allocations, well, there was a choice whether we spend more on the social sector or we spend more on the infrastructure. In fact, my personal bias was towards infrastructure because I wanted, we see more of power generation, more of transportation, railways, and roads and shipping and other things. But then I must also share we had another counter view which came very strongly from none other than Professor Amartya Sen, and he emphasized the aspect of education. Now, if we talk about economic development with sustainability, I feel that well we have to emphasize greatly on social sector. So economic development, if we want with for sustainability, we have to emphasize on education and also health. Health has certainly become very, very important now as we are facing this pandemic. And we realize that, well, we did not pay adequate attention to health. So, well, these are my points as far as you see the discussion on sustainability is concerned. Now, and naturally, I think I don't need to expand the emphasis on health and education. We are all aware of it. Now, we have to certainly make the choice. I don't deny that, well, infrastructure is not important. Infrastructure is important because, well, it helps both the health sector and the education sector. It brings down the cost, general cost, per unit cost of production everywhere. And you see, that is the way forward. But we have to, well, emphasize on both. But I think if we want to look at from the sustainability point of view, education and health are very, very important. In fact, long time back when Adam Smith was talking about wealth of nations, there he also emphasizes that well, what do we mean by wealth of nations? And he says the wealth of nations really implies it's human beings, how well off they are, how educated they are. So that is one thing. But now we are faced now with another challenge, that is of environment. And we realize that with the global warming, things have really gone topsy-turvy. You see the temperatures are going, you see the clouds are carrying more of water, and we have what we know as cloud bursts. So you see, interestingly, you see the Planning Commission happened to send me to the United Nations, to the Commission on Social Development. And there, during the discussions, I found that they were emphasizing on disaster management. So, having been sensitized to this, when the 10th 5 year plan was being formulated, I did make a suggestion that, well, we ought to also have a chapter on disaster management. Then the deputy chairman of the planning commission was Mr. K.C. Pant. He observed this particular observation and he gave the full support to it. And finally, we find that, well, there was a chapter on disaster management. When the discussions on the 10th 5 year plan going on, the chief minister of Assam, it was very satisfying to know, he said that we are extremely happy to the planning commission that there is a chapter on disaster management. So, well, I think this also matters as far as the question of sustainability is concerned. But then I think we need to also recognize one more thing. things are going wrong also because we are, I mean, this is a ethical point, and well, I cannot comment very greatly. That is that of we have all become a consumption society. I think the kind of a consumption level which the West has demonstrated is not sustainable. And that is the reason what has led to this global warming and all kinds of, you see, confusions. So I think we need to also, you see, pay attention to what can we do to the consumption. You see, and immediately, if I may like to comment on as far as this South Asia region is concerned, the crisis in Afghanistan is a really very serious one, very disturbing, and I don't know what kind of a solution we will finally be able to provide. And I have no, you see, no, I'm not finding any, you see, satisfying kind of a solution emerging from the world community. It might become a total failure, which is very dangerous facing all of us. So, with these words, I would like to end and once again congratulate Nirmal for having taken the initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharad Kumar, for your such a comprehensive explanation of the various dimensions of human welfare and also the issue of sustainability. As father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi kind of mentioned that we have enough for our need, but we don't have enough for our greed. So when human greed surpasses, environment suffers. So even the COVID also is a is a is an example how greedy we became, and we neglected ecological issues, and we neglected environmental issues. So very comprehensive and insightful discussion. Now we would come to Dr. Gangaiya. Dr. Gangaiya has been working for both Government of India, National Institute of Rural Development, and also Andhra Pradesh government, and he has almost on economic issues, he has been singularly helping the Andhra Pradesh government. He has been very instrumental in formulation of various policies of Andhra Pradesh government, and he joined the government of India in 1980, and now almost 40 years he has been in the development business. So we are so lucky to have Dr. Gangaiya with us, and now we would request Dr. Gangaiya to give his thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Nirmal, for the opportunity to speak on this occasion, and also thanks Rajiv for making a very brief and good presentation. Of course, I have read the papers and the brief given by Rajiv. They actually summarize the what you call the current thinking and the trends that are going on now, particularly the post-COVID period, how things are transforming the different on different levels. I do agree with all the discussion with what has been done in the paper, and also Dr. Kaushik Basu's brief on the issues. Regarding the sustainable and welfare-oriented development, I feel this has been in the thinking of the planners and also the policymakers for quite some time. But the emphasis, the needed emphasis, was not there in terms of commitment of resources, time, and even the manpower kind of things. Without those commitments, I think these are only the hollow discussions, and then for the sake of mentioning things in the discussions or the papers, policy papers. So I think now it is the time, particularly in retrospect with the experience of COVID, we should also reformulate the entire strategies of whatever we have been doing all this. For example, in the context of India, it has been very much emphasized that education and health are the two important sectors which need huge investment as well as focus. But on both these sectors, if you look at the allocations as part of the GDP, they are very, very low. They are not even comparable to any of the other developing or developed countries. So I don't want to go into the details, but essentially the neglect of health infrastructure as well as in sort of investment on human resources has also not been enough. That's why we are facing the situation here today. The kind of situation we have faced during the COVID. It's really COVID has really exposed the deficiencies in our strategy in terms of investment and also our priorities. I think now is the time to relook some of these basic priorities like education and then health and other human infrastructure and human resource development. Unless these are given due priority and made proper allocations, we are not going to make much progress and then lead to what you call the so-called happiness, which Velmurugan was talking. The happiness, of course, is a combination of material well-being as well as the other social well-being, including psychological well-being. Of course, people can be, as Velu was saying, though they are poor, they are happy because there is something. In fact, even our ancient cultural, traditional, religious, and cultural context also emphasizes this. Materialism doesn't really promote happiness. It needs a much more sort of a holistic philosophy of life. And then after satisfying the basic, what you call this physiological needs and basic infrastructural needs, the overall human development is more important than just making some investments here and there, and then I think that's the priority we have to look for it. And in this, it is not that only economics can play a role, major role. It is the interdisciplinary approach which need to be emphasized. In the sense, there was a sort of a trend in economics also to go interdisciplinary in a very strong way, but somehow later on there is too much of narrow specialization of the disciplines. Unless you have a look at the development as a multidisciplinary approach, and then the better integration of these disciplines, whether it is ecology, natural sciences, sociology, political science, and other economics, of course, and the other sciences also. I think that kind of a model so far has really not evolved, which ultimately focuses on the development of the society and human happiness. So I think this requires sort of multi-dimensional, multi-organizational effort, which need to be done for the promotion of happiness. And post-COVID, of course, things are going to transform our. Lot of things are going to transform into different dimensions. There's going to be much more inequality in terms of access to resources, and there's going to be sort of what you call the sustainability issues, particularly the ecological development and the environmental issues have also come to the fore now much more than earlier and before COVID. Then we have realized then ultimately life is what about happiness, and then living a useful life, which is it promotes social as well as individual happiness. So ultimately, I think we need to have that kind of sort of a multi-dimensional effort. Unless that is done, just mere investments on some materialistic things is not going to promote welfare and happiness. I think with these words, I thank Nirmal for taking this opportunity, and also again Rajiv for making the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bommaiah. Thank you very much, Gangaya, for your very illuminating lecture. And this multi-dimensional and multi-departmental approach is very necessary, and that all the minds have to be put together so that new ideas, new thoughts come up. And after COVID, it will be a real testing time. So many divides, digital divide, vaccine divide, income divide, employment divide. So many divides are dividing us. So world over, and also India. So India is a big country, and especially the poverty numbers have increased world over. But India has the dubious distinction of accounting for most of it. And so again, we had really had a victory over the poverty reduction. So much of people came above the poverty line, but again, because of COVID and this hardship, there are different estimates. 80 to 100 million have joined the poverty uh, poverty basket once again. So this multidimensional approach is very, very important. Thank you so much, Gangaya, for your very illuminating and insightful thoughts. Now I would request Ravinder ji, if she has some thoughts, Ravinder ji can give some of her ideas. Thank you.
Hello everyone. See, I'm basically not from economics, but I just went through the articles, what Kaushik Basu has written and what Rajiv has written. So, two things which actually struck me. One is Kaushik Basu's suggestion that policymakers, whenever they are making any policies regarding climate change or inequities that are existing in the current inequities that are there. So the policies should be other regarding. Other regarding means like we are, a civilized society. So as member of the civilized society and also a welfare state, both of things they are talking about the welfare of other people. Well, other means people who are currently poor and also people of future generation, our children who are going to be there in future. So whatever policies we are making, we should be taking stock of what is happening now and what should be done for the future. That is one point that struck me. And secondly, what Rajiv has written, that the main goal of economic activities is not only to earn money, just earn money, come home, and eat and then sleep. That is not the life that we are supposed to live as human beings. We should be having pursuit of other things also, some creative aspect of human beings, and our hobbies we should be able to pursue. That will what Mr. Velugurudan said, that will increase the happiness index of Indians and of the society in general. So, what makes us happy is not the material aspect of life or the goods or the products that we are accumulating, but our ability to pursue what we want to pursue, our interests and our hobbies and our values, all these things will help us to be happy. So that is the purpose of human society, and we should work towards that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ravinder ji, and especially life is much higher and more important than merely doing
Earning
work
money.
and earning money and then sleeping over. I think Kaushik Basu also has touched upon that is we should give importance to creative pursuit that has its own importance. And Gangaya talked about consumerism and also I think Dr. Sharad Kumar talked about consumerism. So I think we have to be also, we need to be environmentally happy, and all we have to work for climate change mitigation, and all citizen has a responsibility. Government has a responsibility, but the civil society also, by our act, we need to be responsible. I was just wondering, maybe Velu has, Velu, did you, do you want to make some comments? You wanted to make some observation?
Frankly, I have given my opinion on this, and I think Gangaya, Rajiv all spoke very well. You have done a good summation. I don't think I have anything to add to that. The only thing is, ultimately, everybody as a human being, we all want to be happy. That's why we always we are in pursuit of some earning more money. We are in pursuit of getting many things, material things. We believe that all this will automatically translate into happiness. We believe that more income, more money in our hands means more happiness, which is not normally true. The lesson we learn in the COVID has taught us many lessons. This is a new learning for us, and we believe that there are many things much more important than just material pursuit of material welfare. So, in this setting, I think happiness is a very good measure. It's a combination of many factors, and ultimately, everybody, every human being wants to be happy, and this is the ultimate goal which everybody has. That is his desire. That is the ultimate desire. So I think this is something which has COVID has brought a new dimension. We want to be doing well, healthy. We want to remain healthy. We want to be happy. I think these factors have to be incorporated in our economic thinking in future while designing policies. How to make it happy. One single factor which has made Bhutan happy is environmental sustainability. They keep their country very clean. The other factor which Finland has kept emphasizing since beginning for many years is education. They give the excellent education. Finland is known for very excellent education. That has made the people to earn more. They remain very happy. There are many other countries which are having very high tax, but they don't seem to be doing well. They don't seem to be doing well. US, for that matter, is one of the economic superpowers. It's ranked 19th. It is not the. It is not among the top 10 countries which where people are very happy. So this report has brought many startling conclusions. Something it has taught us some lessons, and the COVID has also taught us some lessons. This is what we have to keep in mind in our policy making. Ultimately, it's not just material welfare. I think I've told whatever I wanted to say. Uh, Thank you, Nirmal, for this opportunity. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Ganga.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Velu, and you have further explained Norway, how it has, through education, helped the people, and through environmental upgradation, how Bhutan has helped the countries, help improve countries' happiness index. And of course, we should not be missing Bangladesh, where women's role has played a tremendous role. Again, microfinance, the role of women, and the role of NGOs. Very good example is their health and social indicators, health outcomes. In 1971, when Bangladesh was liberated, um, it had much worse health outcome, like infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, longevity rate, but within 30 years it surpassed India. So that is a thing to be seen. Maybe when you give money into the mother's hand, woman's hands, it makes a radical difference. And also when you give more role to NGOs, it makes uh, difference. Again, the Grameen Bank played a very important role in accessing the finances to the ordinary people. And now, before we end, I would like to make certain points how our endless pursuit of growth in a little mindless manner has really affected us, and really COVID has aggravated this. I was reading a piece in Project Syndicate by uh, Ricardo Hausman, who was Venezuelan planning minister and also the chief economist of Inter-American Development Bank, and now he's a professor in Harvard's Kennedy Government School. He beautifully and very the kind of conversation he had, very nice conversation. Basically, he is talking about capitalism and market. He says that you should have soft love for competition rather than tough love for competition. So you have to be mindful of the people, poor. And now I will also touch upon very briefly how COVID and uh, our lack of human welfare thing has affected our growth, especially in COVID time. The 90% of our listed companies have made record profit when sales are going down and output is dwindling. Output is declining, sales going down, and our companies are making, some of them are making record profit. So this anomaly needs to be borne in mind. And here the role of MSMEs and the brunt that our informal sector and our medium and small scale industries and MSMEs suffered, that needs to be revived. Again, rising unemployment, salary cuts, increased poverty number, digital divide, vaccine divide. Many of the things are world over. Again, lack of adequate responses from the north, from the developed countries to the south. And we don't know what is happening in Africa. There is no test, nothing. So, and no kind of vaccination, enough vaccination. So I think that is another vaccine divide also will affect the future development. So the global government, that is UN and other multilaterals, will have to take note of that. The G20 has to take note of that. G7 has to take note of that development, because if there is problem in India, it will be problem world over. So that is a situation which we need to see. We will very good discussion today. We will continue with such discussions. Maybe our next discussion will be on Friday, August 20. We'll let you know. And to our audience, we request that please, if you like this video, please click the like button. And if you like our presentation, please subscribe to our channel. We'll come out with new, very objective analysis of the developmental issues, the global developmental issues, regional developmental issues, South Asian developmental issues, and India's country-specific issues in an objective manner, with facts and figures, and with some suggestion with people with 4 decades of developmental experience will unfold their mind what can be possibly done to improve the situation. And with these words, I would like to thank Rajiv ji, Rajiv ji for presenting his paper, succinct paper in a very beautiful way. Dr. Sharad Kumar, Velu, Dr. Gangaya, and Rabinder ji for being with us. If we want to informally chat, we can. I'm going to stop the recording, and after that, we can chat for another 5-10 minutes informally. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for being present. Hope you are doing well, and your family is doing well, and your loved ones are doing well. Take care and be happy, and all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you all.